I knew that was something I needed to have.
All right, like in your heart, which is
There are clearing a house of information.
None other than one of those very heroes. So, for those who don't know, I'd like you to take a couple minutes.
Are you originally from the Charleston area?
And the youth in South Carolina.
Here, I'm raised here.
Hey, well, my name's Alex.
The team is when the Emmanuel music to spread love and
Hello world, and welcome back to Real Talk with ReZsaun, where nothing's off limits. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with me, and I appreciate that. I am your host, ReZsaun Lewis. Now, here on Real Talk with ReZsaun, everything's debatable, so on any given week, we could be discussing anything from sports to music to politics. You name it, we'll discuss it. Now, for those who are new to the show, Real Talk with ReZsaun also has a goal of shining a light on the great things and the great people that are right here in the Low Country, as well as the state of South Carolina and beyond to the nation and the world when necessary. Today I have a very, very special guest. This gentleman really needs no introduction anywhere, especially in the state of South Carolina. We've seen him, we've watched him, we've known him for so long, especially in the political community. He's a minority whip. He's one of the longest serving, I believe, if not the longest serving, one of the longest serving congressmen in the nation. Congressman James E. Clyburn, and he is my guest for today. Right now, he's still not at his chair, so I'm going to stall. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you haven't already, please share. This is a Real Talk with ReZsaun. We do this show every single week to shine a light on the great things that are happening in the Low Country. All right. Oh, and he's here. All right. The man, the myth, the legend. Thank you so much, Congressman Clyburn. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I am phenomenal. I want to get right to it because I know you have a limited amount of time to speak today. So I first of all want to thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. I know you don't have to. You'll have a lot of things that you could be doing with your time, but you took the time to do this, and that means a lot to me. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right. So please, for the 5 people on earth that don't know who you are, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, I'm Jim Clyburn. I proudly represent the 6th Congressional District of South Carolina. A native of Sumter, started my professional career in Charleston, currently living in Columbia and Santee.
Okay. So let's get right into it. Everybody knows you as, Congressman Clyburn. Can you talk a little bit about your background, before you became Congressman Clyburn, that really sparked that flame that made you want to get into politics, into legislation?
Well, when I was a kid growing up in Sumter, I grew up at the time that things were happening to challenge the status quo. My father was a minister, my mother a beautician, both of them sort of independent of the so-called power structure. And so my mom was very active in the NAACP, raising money. My father, of course, was a pretty activist minister, worked registering people to vote. And so when I was 12 years old, I joined the NAACP Youth Council. And I went to a meeting at Emmanuel United Methodist Church of the Youth Council. And I don't know what happened, but I came out of the meeting as president. So I became president of the NAACP Youth Council when I was 12 years old. Now, I was 2 months before my 13th birthday when it happened. And of course, my dad knew Reverend J. A. DeLane. Reverend J. A. DeLane is the minister, AME minister, who organized the students and parents over in Summerton, South Carolina. And they challenged segregated schools. The first case to challenge segregated schools came from Summerton, South Carolina. Now, we all call it the Brown versus Board of Education decision, and we all associated it with Kansas. But the truth of the matter is, the Brown case was really 5 cases.
Mm-hmm.
The Briggs case from South Carolina, the Davis case coming out of Virginia, Bolton out of Washington, D.C., the Belton case out of Delaware, and then the Brown case out of Kansas.
Mhm.
And they were all wrapped into one. So when the Supreme Court ruled in the 1954 Brown v. Board of Education decision, it was 5 different cases. But the original case came from the little town of Summerton, South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
I knew all of those people. My dad was very active with those people. So that's what I grew up in. So I go off to South Carolina State. I graduated high school at 16, went to South Carolina State, and I got involved in the so-called student movement. Met my wife in jail. March 1960. John Lewis and I met each other in October 1960. And we were founding members of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
Yes, sir.
So I've just been involved in all of this all my life. When I started teaching school down in Charleston, I stayed active. And after 3 years of teaching school, I got involved in the local stuff there, ran a campaign for the first Black city councilman in Charleston. I managed that campaign since Union Divine. And that's when I really got involved in politics. Ran myself in 1970 for the State House. Was declared the winner at 10 o'clock in the evening, but then something happened around 3 o'clock and I got counted out. And so John West saw my reaction to that. That's one of the things I try to say to young people is that, no matter what the situation may be, you don't always, and I learned this, my dad used to tell me all the time, you don't tell people everything that's on your mind. Now, I knew that I was not supported by the powers that be back in 1970. And I knew that nobody was doing me any favors. And quite frankly, I was the only Democrat to lose in 1970. So the whole Charleston County legislative delegations were Democrats except one. And that one person was a guy named Side-Eye Limehouse. That's who beat me out of the State House. Simply because I got counted out. So all kinds of rumors are floating around as to why I didn't win. And so when I was asked by a reporter why I didn't win, I told him because I didn't get enough votes. And she said to me, and she said, "Oh, you know what they're saying. What you think really happened?" I said, "I just didn't get enough votes." And that was the headline the next day. John West had just gotten elected governor. He saw that headline and he called me and asked me to come on his staff.
Wow.
And the rest is history. So I tell young people all the time, you don't say everything that's on your mind. That's not what I said, was not everything I felt. But if I had said what I really felt, I never would have gotten that phone call from John West.
Wow.
And I never would be where I am today.
That's an amazing story. That is an amazing story. And I had never heard that story, so thank you for sharing it. I actually heard you speak. You were at Emmanuel AME Church. I want to say it was 2017. They were having the Omega's award ceremony. You were the keynote speaker. And every time I hear you speak, I'm always given more knowledge. That yes comes from yesteryear, but it's definitely relevant today. So thank you for continuing to do that. I wanted to ask you about your history, in civil rights, and how it pertains to what we're seeing right now, in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and all of these different things that are permeating their way into every walk of life. I know you mentioned, young people, feeling the need to say everything that's on their mind. What do you think about the approach that's currently being taken, and how would you advise the young people of today to move to get that kind of change that you guys were able to implement in the 60s and 70s?
Well, the challenges for young people today are different from the ones that we had. We lived at a time when, most people didn't have television when I was growing up. I remember when we got a TV, we were the first house. Ours was the first house in the community with a television, and all of my friends used to come to our house to watch TV. That was a real phenomenon to us. I learned my politics from radio. So it's different today. And so I say to young people, we were able to do things and say things and not have to worry about the consequences. Today, you got to worry about the consequences of everything you do or say. The internet is one of the best things that ever happened. It's also one of the worst things that ever happened. I was just watching this morning the reports of how much disinformation is being pumped into the African American community via the internet. 4 years ago, we now know that the Russians were pumping all kinds of disinformation into the Black community, and they're still doing it today. And so I would say, especially to young Black men and women, you got to be leery of the stuff you see on the internet. I can guarantee you right now, Facebook is headed for some serious trouble in the years to come, because a lot of people have come to the conclusion that Facebook was complicit in what it did with the Russians 4 years ago. Now I'm in the Congress, and I can tell you right now, even if I wanted to give Facebook the benefit of the doubt, here's something that happened that is shocking to me. Much of the pay that Facebook got came in rubles. Now the ruble in this country, in Russia, is the ruble.
Yeah.
They were paid in rubles. And that's why you see all the stuff going on about Facebook. So much of that stuff they knew were lies. And they pump it into the Black community. Wow. And so a lot of the Black voters, a lot of the Black people acted upon information they were getting off of social media, and they were all flat out lies. So it's a difference today. And so young African Americans today are going to have to be much more vigilant than we were. We didn't have to worry about misinformation, that kind of stuff. You got to worry about that today.
Yes, sir.
And you got to be very careful about that. Yes, and just don't accept everything you see. I see every now and then one of my daughters would come to me showing me what someone said about me on Facebook, and it's based upon what they read somebody else said about me, and it's all just total lies.
Yeah.
It's outright lies. And they're acting on it. They are giving me hell about something that never did happen. And we got a president in office right now. You just saw this morning, ReZsaun, the CEO of ReZsaun, putting out a statement this morning because of something the president said yesterday. It says, let's be clear, it never happened.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if it happened or not, but Trump said it happened. And the ReZsaun people saying it never happened. So you can't believe everything you see on this stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to stay right there in terms of the campaigns, because I do want to, we do have a limited amount of time, so I want to make sure I ask you about your campaign, because you are running for re-election. You served, the 6th district of South Carolina for in the United States House. You serve as minority whip.
Majority whip.
Majority whip. I apologize. Yes, sir. Let me put respect on your name. But for sure, majority whip. Please. why should people give you another, another term in the seat that you've been in for so long?
Well, this is my second time being majority whip, and I know a lot of times, and that's part of what you're not responsible. We all fall victim to that.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at a black guy and you say he's a minority, and in the overall scheme of things, I understand how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened to me on yesterday, and I had to do the same thing I just did.
No problem.
And it's the mindset, and, so I'm gonna blame you for that. It's the way things happen.
Yes, sir.
But my job as the majority whip is to count the votes. I have to make sure. You see, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, is the Speaker of the whole House. The Republicans have what they call a Republican leader, and there's a Democratic leader. Mm-hmm. And so under the Democratic leader is a Democratic whip. Under the Republican leader is a Republican whip.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so those are the top 5 positions: the Speaker, 2 leaders, 2 whips. So whichever party is in the majority,
yes,
you're the majority whip or the minority whip. So since the Democrats are now in the majority, I'm the majority whip, but I'm the Democratic whip as opposed to the Republican whip. So that's how it works. The Speaker decides what the House agenda is. The leader decides what should come to the floor. And then it's the whip's job to decide how to go about getting the votes and
you whip up the votes.
Get the votes. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I have to tell you this, and I think the reason I'm stuck there with the minority piece is because the House was just taken back over by the Democrats in the last couple years in the midterm elections. So I came to visit your office. I've actually been to your office the last 3 years with the National Mentor Summit, but you're not there usually because you're so busy doing whip stuff. But last time I came, you were still minority whip. It was still the minority part. So that's why I was stuck there. So I do apologize there. But
no problem.
But next time I come, I hope I get to see you because like you're a major hero of mine. I gotta be honest with you.
Thank you. Let's make sure we do that.
Yes,
and be sure you come into the whip office and not to the to my congressional office. I do have a congressional office over in Canada, and so a lot of students will go to that office. Yes. The whip office is over in the Capitol.
Okay, I was going to Cannon. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so I'm in the whip office most of the times. So the next time you come, you just make sure to tell the staff you want to visit the whip, not the congressman.
Nice. I love it. I will do that.
They'll make sure they bring to the whip office.
Yes, sir. So let me ask you this: in your time in Congress, what are the things that you're most proud of accomplishing? As a congressman and as whip.
Well, let me tell you something, and I'm glad you asked that question because I don't know if there's something. I've got 3 daughters, one of whom, my daughter Jennifer, runs my campaign. She retired. She's a retired educator, taught school for 25 years, and she's now running the campaign. And she gets all upset when she sees all this stuff on social media about this, that, and the other. But this gives me an opportunity to say some things that I hope we can share with her.
Yes, sir.
When I got elected in 1992. The 2 big drivers of South Carolina's economy was tobacco and textiles. Textiles rely upon cotton. Tobacco, of course, was the biggest cash crop. But I knew from my studies, and I knew that tobacco and textiles were not going to be South Carolina's economic engine into the future. And we now know what has happened. Both of them, by and large. How many textile mills are left in South Carolina? Textiles gone. Tobacco, it's gone to Asia. Now there's some cotton being grown, there's some tobacco being grown, but they are not the economic engine that used to be. I knew that the future of South Carolina was going to be tourism today and transportation. The two T's, textiles and tobacco, are now given away to two other T's, transportation and tourism. So when I got elected, I got on what is called the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. It was called Public Works back then, but that's what it's called now, Transportation and Infrastructure. Because I knew that in order for me to have the counties I represent to be an integral part of South Carolina's economy, that's where I needed to be. Now, what have been the results? The Lake Marion Regional Water Agency was started by me with an earmark. I caught a lot of hell from a lot of people for doing it. Some people stopped speaking to me and have not started back speaking to me yet. To them, that was a waste of money. But I'll tell you what, the Volvo plant that's sitting down there near Charleston now, right outside of Somerville in Berkeley County, right across from Dorchester. I know Somerville is in Dorchester County, but right across the interstate highway in Berkeley County is a Volvo plant.
Yes, sir.
South Carolina got that plant over the other states because of the Lake Marion Regional Water Agency.
Wow.
If we did not have that water agency to produce the water that that plant needed, we never would have gotten the plant. So I don't care what former governors or current governors say to you about what brought, who brought the Volvo plant there. I can't give tax credits. Yeah, the governor can do that. They can do all kinds of incentives to get somebody to locate. But if you don't have the water, the industry needs water more than anything else. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the water, you ain't gonna get it. Yeah. So because of what we did with the Lake Marion Regional Water Agency, that's over $90 million that we put into Lake Marion Regional Water Agency. That's one of the things I'm very proud of. But here's what I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of the fact that when I got elected, we didn't have any national parks in South Carolina. We now have two. When I got elected, we got three. When I got elected, we didn't have any heritage corridors in South Carolina. We now have two. All five of those things, those three national parks, those two heritage corridors, they are the drivers of tourism. My name, I'm the sponsor of the legislation of all five of those things, all five. The South Carolina National Heritage Corridor was my legislation. The Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor, my legislation. Mm-hmm. The Congaree National Park, the Reconstruction Era National Park, and Fort Sumter, Fort Moultrie, they are now all national parks. And Jim Clyburn is the one that sponsored the legislation for all of them. Yeah. That's what I'm most proud of, because these communities are now in the middle of tourism. In fact, David Beasley was governor at the time. He created the South Carolina National Heritage Corridor, and he said in a speech that Heritage Corridor would enhance tourism to South Carolina by 700,000 people. He said we'll get an additional 700,000 people because of that. So when people said, I can't see anything that you've done, I just say, your eyes must be closed.
Well, thank you for that, Congressman. Majority Whip Jim Clyburn. I want to ask you one more question because I think I have 6 minutes left. I want to ask you about the importance of voting. We are at a time, where people are, I think, taking the vote for granted in a lot of cases. They're looking at polls and saying, "Oh, we're going to get X and Y result based on the polls." Why is it important? I'll make my second to last question. Why is it important that people get out to vote, and why should they vote for you?
Well, look, I think that I've earned the vote of the people of the 6th Congressional District. I just gave you asked me most proud. You didn't say of all the things I'm proud of. I could go all the way back to I'm the one that created and got funded the Matthew J. Perry United States Courthouse. We can look at all kinds of stuff we've done. You may have heard of the Call Me Mr. program, which is a program.
Graduate of the Call Me Mr. program.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir.
You a graduate of that?
College of Charleston. Yes, sir.
Well, that program is run by Clemson University, from out the other college university. And guess how I got started? With a Jim Clyburn earmark.
Praise God.
Earmarked the money to Clemson University. The start called me Mr. And now it's going national. It's now a national program. I started 10, 20, 30. Directing 10% of all the money to where 20% of the more of the population is stuck beneath the poverty level for the last 30 years. That's now in Joe Biden's platform. That's now in 17 appropriation bills. How did that get started? A Jim Clyburn designation. I have earned the votes of the people in this district. And I defy anyone that challenge anything that I've said here today about that. And I could get into other things as well. But when it comes to voting, it's not just about me. It's about the future. It is about you, your children and grandchildren. It is about whether or not we are going to project out far enough. One of the problems we have is that people want to see the results of their action the next morning. No, you have to plan short-term and long-term. If I vote, I may want to see the guy I voted for elected the next day. But you got to look at what is going to take place way down the road as a result of the policies developed by the guy you get elected. And I don't know that a lot of people get nervous when I say this, but when I have 3 daughters, when I see the kind of disrespect that the current president seemed to have for women, and especially black women, when he referred to a woman, an African-American woman who worked on his staff, looked in the camera and referred to her as a dog. When he referred to Kamala Harris, the first Asian-American woman, African-American woman to ever serve on a major national party ticket or run for vice president, called her a monster. And something about that word monster. I just noticed a letter here from a white constituent here in Richland County referring to a black member of the school board here as a monster. And I'm saying to myself, there must be some new term being used out here. Why would you call Kamala Harris a monster? There's something going on here. And that is what is happening with women. So I don't understand how any man with a daughter or a sister or an aunt or a cousin or who had been born of a woman can support somebody who would do that. So your vote is very important. And you need to think about stuff. Don't forget about social media. Look at what the guy is saying to you when you look at him on the evening news. And just remember the history. Robert Smalls, who was born in Beaufort, South Carolina, was a slave, got his freedom there in the Charleston Harbor, got great wealth, served in the House of Representatives for 10 years here in Columbia, and served in the United States Congress, House of Representatives, for 10 years. But when he died in 1915, he died of a broken heart. Why? Because all of his rights and privileges as a citizen had been taken away. And so I will say to young people, no matter how high you may be flying today, just remember your history.
Yes, sir.
Robert Smalls got to be a very wealthy man after being born a slave. But he was just one cut above being a slave and he died because his rights were taken away because the wrong people got elected to office, because we got a Supreme Court that decided Plessy versus Ferguson that's separate but equal. It would be the law of the land.
Yes, sir.
And so that's why it's necessary to vote. You got to vote. We got a Supreme Court right now that just got rid of the Voting Rights Act 7 years ago, that's now vowing to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. That's why it's important to vote. And don't think about voting just for the president. No president ever been to your school board meetings. You need to vote for school board elections. You need to go for city council and county council. Vote for state legislators and state house members and senators. And vote for your county officers. The person who runs the car in the office makes the decisions that affect people's lives, not just the ones who may have died, but their relatives who were left behind.
Yes, sir.
You need to be voting for everybody. And so I just think it's important to vote. And just think about your future and your children and grandchildren. You got to vote. You got to participate, because after every election, somebody is going to win the office. And just because you stay out of the activity doesn't mean you won't have it any better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank you so much. I think that's a great place to drop the mic right there. I know you do have another engagement you have to get to. So I want to again thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your words of wisdom. And of course I wish you all the best in this upcoming election and in years to come. I want to personally thank you as somebody who is a young Black man who is a graduate of the Call Me Mr. program, who has political aspirations in the future one day. For your example. I want to thank you for being a stalwart. Thank you for being a person who we can all look to as an example, as a father, as a husband. And again, there's so much I could say that I want to tell you. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I had no idea that you were going to call me Mr. Program, but thank you so much for being such a good representative of that. That program was started so that you guys can be role models for young people, especially in elementary schools. And so you are a great role model, and thank you so much for being what you are.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the words, and I appreciate it. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm going to go ahead and end the interview here. I'm not going to do my long spiel. I just want to say that God is everything, and without him, we are nothing. So never forget where your help comes from. And if a man doesn't stand for something, he's bound to fall for anything. Now that is real talk. I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.